Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors, your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Winston Chester. I'm glad you're here this morning. Our weather brought to us by Haney Technical Center at 767-5500, run by C Principal Mike Heppenstall and staff there. They're good folks. They certainly will help you out. I got a great show lined up. We'll get started with our how hot it's going to be today. It's going to get all the way up to 68. I'm sorry, it's going to get up to 60 degrees. Barely break 60. Okay, and the low tonight is going to be 42. The water temperature remains at 69 degrees. So, got about 18-degree variable. It's still damp and cold, and it's just going to be. It's what we needed. It's what we wanted. So we're getting it. Now let's take a look at our tides. Our Panama City tides. We're looking at our low tide this morning at 6:53. Today is the 13th of Thursday, December 13th, and a good strong tide today. A high tide at 8:45 now. You got a 2.2 foot range. A really strong tide today, tomorrow, and Saturday. Okay. Now don't forget tomorrow. Now we had a big famous Friday fishing forecast, and we'll also give away the Tarpon Dock Seafood red snapper and a $25 gift certificate. We do that every Friday morning. So be tuned in and be watching that. Let me say this at this point in time. We have an unfortunate situation. A young 13-year-old lady passed away with her family down here. She was from South Georgia, but her family's here. And the family's in dire need of some expenses, and a lot of folks and friends are getting together this Saturday at Sheffield Park there in Lynn Haven, having a fish fry to raise funds for this family that's in need. They've lost their 13-year-old daughter, and the fish fry will be from 10 o'clock till 5 o'clock Saturday. So anytime you're passing by there, we always talk about one of our main themes on Panhandle Outdoors is doing good things and helping people. And this is a great opportunity. You get a great meal, and you'll be donating to a good cause. So that's this Saturday at Sheffield Park right there in Lynn Haven from 10 to 5, a big fish fry benefiting this family. Okay? We'll take our first break, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, and our guest, Lieutenant Stan Kirkland.
Well, good morning, Winston.
Glad to have you this morning.
Thank you, sir.
We just finished a big commission meeting, and I know a lot of people, a lot of information, and they go for a couple of days at one time. They can't do it all in one day, can they?
No, they cover the commissioners, and by the way, let me say this, the people of Apalachicola, the commission's been up there the last couple of years, and the people of Apalachicola are very nice and receptive, and they seem to really, the commissioners enjoy going there, and the people seem to have really embraced the commission attending, being there, and we kind of pushed the courtroom people out of the courtroom for a day or so, but Melanie, the lady that works there, there in the courthouse, and others, they just are tremendous to work with. But Winston, the commissioners though cover both marine issues, and then they cover freshwater fish and wildlife issues. A lot of what they do at a commission meeting, if a person's never attended, is to get updates and staff presentations, and the staff bring, in essence, if you boil it all down, they bring the commissioners up to speed on where we are on certain things, and commissioners sometimes direct staff to bring things to their attention, So, but sometimes it actually involves what you call the enactment or promulgation of rules under the commission's constitutional authority, and of course it has to apply to taking of freshwater fish, saltwater fish, and wildlife. But anyway, one of the things that was discussed at the meeting was, of course, the grouper season, the one that we just had, as well as the possible framework that we may look at next year. This coming year, it'll probably be very similar to what we had this year. From all I heard, we just had an abundance of a lot of grouper. They're still considered by the National Marine Fisheries Service to be an overfished species, so we don't have as long a season as we'd like. But so that's one of the things the commission addressed. Another thing they talked about, didn't take any action on, was the designation of certain marine fish that we like to catch sport fish and game fish categories. No action again was taken, but just one of the things that jumped out at me was when I was reading the background material is Florida has more IGFA records than any state in the country, and Florida is the game fishing fishing capital of the world. People come to Florida to fish all assortment of species, and so they talked about this, and so we'll see where that goes on down the road, but there'll be more on that, and the more discussion on the possible sport fish, game fish categories for marine fish at the February meeting they'll be having. So, you know, and then there was some updates about wildlife issues, some discussion about the quota procedure, a little about hunting, but and then of course one thing that really captivated the audience and my attention was a presentation on the oyster industry in Apalachicola Bay, because people probably know from seeing and hearing the news that you know, the oyster industry, particularly Apalachicola Bay, but also across the Gulf, is in real dire straits. There's been a paper recently created by the Department of Agriculture Consumer Services, and it shows that the number of oysters per acre that the oystermen take are really declining. The DAX is responsible for monitoring water quality and seeing what's there, and of course we're in the regulatory, as an agency, we're in the regulatory side, making sure they take oystermen take legal oysters by proper methods and all that, but really a tough time, and apparently due to lack of fresh water. In fact, Winston, one of the fascinating things is there is now even one of the people brought in a type of coral that is growing in the bay that you normally will never see, where you have the proper mix of fresh water and salt water. So it really, you know, that jumped out, I think, at a lot of people, but you know, a lot of dams on the ACF system. Lake Lanier is pointed at sometimes up in Georgia as the culprit, but and the city of Atlanta taking so much water. But we just need more water down the river is what we need. Yeah,
and we've been saying that, you know, we do the river readings every day, and we've been saying that for a couple of years, and it's just so obvious that it can't stay that low for so long and not have an effect. And it is having an effect. It certainly is. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's take a break now. We've got a lot more good questions for Stan, and we'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. Glad you're with us this morning. I was talking to Stan, and one of the things we didn't get to last section was the red snapper. So I get asked a lot, Stan, about red snapper. So what's the take on it?
Well, what the commission did was ask for a staff recommendation of what we would like to see as an agency on grouper. There wasn't a staff recommendation on, or there wasn't a discussion about red snapper at this meeting. But Winston, I'm sure it'll come up, and of course, it'll come up soon, and I guess it would be at the next meeting. I'll have to check on that for you, and I'll let you know. But of course, anything we do is only for state waters, and it has to be done or brokered, if that's the word, or discussed, and with some concurrence with the National Marine Fisheries Service and Gulf of Mexico Fisheries Management Council, particularly, so that you know that we have something that everybody can live with.
Okay. All right. Now, again, I get asked a lot of questions about bears. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's
Winston,
talk about bears a minute.
We had the most interest. Well, we had an unfortunate thing happen Sunday night. This past Sunday night, a bear was run over on General Bond Boulevard there in Eglin. This bear was an old female. She was 18 and a half years old. She had a really gray muzzle. Actually had a cub with her. The cub apparently ran after the accident. She unfortunately didn't make it. But the reason we know this bear is 18 and a half years old, she had a small metal tag in one ear. None of our people recognized this tag. When they started looking back, she had the number 20 in that tag, or number 20 on that tag. When they started looking back, and they knew she was very old from her, muzzle and her general appearance. But they realized this bear had been tagged in June of 1995.
Wow.
She was a year and a half old, and actually she was part of when she was tagged, and then she had a radio collar. She was part of a research project there on Eglin. It was not only what used to be Game and Fish, which is the agency prior to 1999, our agency prior to 99, but it was our agency, Department of Defense, that's Eglin, University of Florida, University of Tennessee, and it was a kind of a long-term monitoring project for several years on quite a numbers of bears, seeing about range, movement, and that sort of thing. Another interesting sidelight of this is, and by the way, let me say this, we don't know how many cubs she had, but it's likely, from talking to our bear staff, somewhere she had between 10 and 14 cubs over her life. We don't know for sure, but that's assuming she was 4 or 5 when she started having cubs, and then she would have had, we'll assume 2 every other year. It could have been 1, but generally at least 2. Sometimes they'll have 3, and we've seen them in rare cases as many as 4.
Wow.
But so that's just really interesting. We had another thing to happen in discussion with one of our staff yesterday about this bear. He sent me a photo, and we're going to show you a photo, and it's very unusual. One of the bears that was in the study group was a 400-pound male. And the bear actually originated in the Apalachicola National Forest, where he came from, was caught at the elementary school at Tyndall in 1996, moved to Eglin, fitted with a radio collar, and he was part of this study. That bear stayed less than a day on Eglin and then started heading northwest. And one of the staff, one of the researchers, was monitoring this bear, and he captured this photo of this bear running across a field, a peanut field at Atmore, Alabama.
Oh,
and the
goodness.
bear almost hits this guy on this motorcycle. You can see the guy on the motorcycle, I don't think, had any idea there's a bear running across this field, and he missed him by perhaps a second to 2 seconds.
Well, that bear started in Apalachicola, went over to Tyndall.
Correct. It was caught at Tyndall. We had to relocate him.
To Eglin, and then in Alabama.
Well, he doesn't end there. He had a radio tracking collar, of course. That's how they knew where he was. Well, the bear disappeared. In fact, after that picture was made, they flew a day or 2 later to see if they could determine where the bear was, because this is agricultural country up near Atmore, and there are some forested areas, but a lot of agriculture. They couldn't find the bear. They had the telemetry equipment on the aircraft. They couldn't find him, so they gave up on him. About 4 months later, we get a call, and it's from, it came through Louisiana Game and Louisiana, I'm not sure if it's Game and Fish or Department of Fish and Wildlife, whatever they call their agency, but also the U.S. Department of Agriculture was involved. But they had a bear that was inside the Baton Rouge, Louisiana city limits with a collar. They could see him, but they couldn't figure out whose bear it was. And so when our people gave them the numbers for this collar to be able to pick up the signal, it was our bear.
No way.
Yes, and in fact, a Cajun lieutenant with their sheriff's department called me, and I didn't know anything about the bear, and I thought it was a prank.
Yeah.
And I was sitting on the phone listening to this guy with a Cajun accent going, who do I know that's got a Cajun accent that can pull this off? But it turns out to be true. Louisiana caught the bear. They actually brought him back to us. We took possession of this drugged bear, bear in a cage, and had to transfer him to our cage in Pensacola, took him back to the National Forest. He only stayed a few days, and then he started heading back. And he got to the Gulf County area, and he disappeared. We don't know what happened to him. Oh. We don't know if the collar malfunctioned. Yeah. We don't know if if he could have gotten killed, run over. We just don't know. Yeah. But he just disappeared.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
How did he get from Atmore, Alabama to Baton Rouge, Louisiana?
He crossed Well, I'm
That's
assuming
amazing.
he crossed 4 interstates. He crossed 18 major 2-lane highways, and this is all in a research paper that was done. That's where I'm getting this from.
Oh,
He crossed an unknown number of paved roads, smaller paved and county roads, and then ended up. And I think Louisiana would have left him alone, but he was kind of trapped in an industrial area. There were houses, and they knew that he was either, you know, he was he was going to meet a untimely end if they didn't get him out of there. So that's why they got him out of there. But they do travel.
I'd like to get after the show, get all this information and share this with my class.
Yes.
I think that's just fascinating that a bear can go that far. Most people don't realize a bear can go that far.
We actually had one a few years ago that was in the Apalachicola National Forest. It was a tag bear, and this has probably been at least 10 or maybe longer, maybe 15 years ago, but it was run over in Citrus County by a deputy. And the deputy didn't see the bear. It was middle of the night. The deputy was on patrol, and the bear ran out and he hit the bear, and unfortunately the bear was killed. But when they got the tag and started researching it, the bear was in I believe Liberty County, and then 4 or 5 months later was killed in Citrus County.
That's
So
amazing.
you know, yep.
That is amazing. All right, we're going to take our final break, and we'll be right back with Stan. All right, welcome back. Sitting here with Lieutenant Stan Kirkland. We're just talking about all kinds of different things and all, but first let's look at our fish and game forecast today. And today is one of these days we just have one time for the day, and it's right here in the middle. It's from 12:02 to 2:02, so it's an excellent day to just take a 2-hour lunch break and just tell the boss you got to go wet a hook or something. Stan, you can be able to do that at Deer Point Lake. You step out the front door and you're fishing.
I do that anyway.
Okay. We had some. This is very interesting stuff. Appreciate Stan coming by on a monthly basis. Pythons.
Before we get to pythons, let me mention this briefly.
Okay.
I know we're going to talk about pythons, but talking about animals traveling, we had a Florida panther. We believe it's a Florida panther. We don't believe it's a mountain lion that somebody had in captivity and it escaped, that was run over this week in Orange County.
Oh.
It's about a 120-pound cat. It was a young cat, a male, that was run over in Orange County, which is pretty close to Orlando, not far from Orlando. We had one that a hunter unfortunately killed a couple of years ago up in central Georgia. And it was one of our cats that originated in South Florida, but he had gone all the way up the center of Florida, we think pretty much the center, and then was in central Georgia. The point that I wanted to make is not only bears, but big cats travel. And there are a lot of animals, these bigger animals that will travel. There's mountain lions right now turning up in Nebraska. In Oklahoma, I believe Oklahoma, I've read. Recently, a mountain lion was run over in New York, and it had been tracked all the way from North Dakota, I believe I read, across the northern U.S., Minnesota, kept going, got around the Great Lakes, kept going, and ended up in New York, and a lady driving a van with a bunch of kids, a group of kids, ran over the thing.
Oh, my goodness.
So it would have eventually run into the land. Point is that some of these big animals do move, and that's the way they disperse. Sometimes they disperse. So anyway.
As long as they got food along the way, they just find food and they just keep on traveling. All they need is food.
Well, yeah, and the point I was trying to make is, you know, we know that animals in a certain area, but they move, and particularly the young will disperse, and so they will occupy new habitat. A lot of times they get kicked out. Young bears are a good example. They get kicked out, and young panthers, they have to find their own way because they'll get killed by larger males. That's one of the causes of mortality right now in our panther population is big males will kill males that want to occupy their own habitat. So they kind of have to find their own way, and then they run into, you know, people and roads and houses and dogs and development and all the stuff, and you know, so That's why we can only sustain a limited number of these animals.
That's right.
Talking about panthers, pythons, you mentioned, I think, last week about the Python Challenge down in South Florida. You remember the Cash for Clunkers program. This is Cash for Snakes. But we have a program that'll run from January the 12th through I think it's February the 10th in 4 areas of the Everglades, where if you want to participate, you register. I think it's a $25 fee, but the winner that gets the most pythons, and believe me, they're apparently enough to make this worthwhile. They get $1,500 cash, and the person that gets the biggest snake it gets $1,000. We've recovered one out of the wild in South Florida that was over 17 feet long and weighed close to 300 pounds, or between 250 and 300 pounds. I don't remember the exact weight, but that's a big snake.
I was telling my class that story, and we have a 16-foot canoe, if you remember, in the back of my room. And I said, that snake was a foot longer than this canoe, and they sort of they couldn't believe it.
And actually, one was killed last year that had a adult doe deer inside of it. It was an adult doe deer. They saw this huge bulge in this snake. The snake wasn't moving, and for good reason. So,
didn't you say we got one up here recently?
A young lady, I understand, killed one last week in Holmes County. It was an 11-footer. We've recovered one live one in Crestview that was an escaped snake. One recently in Gulf County. One of our people picked up 3 red-tailed boas, which are pythons, are in the python family, last year over in the National Forest. We don't believe they're breeding up here. We hope and we think that it's too cold for them to survive the winter. But important thing is you cannot purchase these snakes anymore. They're conditional species. You can't bring them into Florida without a permit.
Okay. Well, Sam, that's some great information today, buddy.
Thank you, Winston.
Well, animals are something, aren't they? They're fascinating.
It's never dull.
And this show's never dull, hopefully, to you. So listen, you do something good for somebody today, and you just have a great day, and God bless.
Thanks for joining us for Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors features hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.